Next traffic, 1225.
Thank you, Robin. 12:16 right now on this midweek edition of the Noon News. And President Obama earlier today addressed the 66th session of the United Nations General Assembly. He made clear his opposition to the Palestinians' plan to seek statehood recognition from the UN Security Council, but continued to call for peace. Joining us for insight on the speech and reaction, Dr. Hisham Ahmed, professor of politics at St. Mary's College in Moraga. Dr. Ahmed, thanks for coming on KGO as always.
My pleasure indeed, John.
Well, the president seemed to be sort of laying down the law. Do you believe it's enough to jumpstart the process, the peace talks and so on?
Well, I'm afraid that it won't. There have been many attempts at negotiations for the past few years, and all along, systematically, subsequent Israeli governments have really stalled such negotiations. Particularly, the current Israeli government does not seem to have any interest but in building more settlements, erecting more walls, and putting more complications in the way of any peaceful settlement for the conflict. In my view, this was really the catalyst to drive even somebody like Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian president, Abbas, who is an ardent supporter of negotiations and reconciliation, to feel despair and to feel that he has reached a hopeless situation with the Israelis, which really triggered him to go to the United Nations to ask for recognition. In other words, what's happening is it really signifies an attempt by the Palestinians to move away from bilateral negotiations, which have not delivered any concrete results, to the international community. And in today's speech, I think President Obama, while I fully understand that he has to cater to the needs and desires of many constituencies in the United States, from a Palestinian point of view, I think he was very disappointing. He cast the blame on the victim for the failure of the negotiations and for the Palestinians' bid to go to the United Nations. I think what he should have really done is, since he supports the establishment of a Palestinian state, he should facilitate the process, and he should further convince the Israelis, prevail upon the Israelis, that the only alternative to pursue at this stage is peace. And short of that, I'm afraid, conflict could ensue. So, in other words, there might be widespread disappointment in the Arab world, in an area where the Arab street is already dynamic and out there. There will be widespread disappointment in Palestinian society, especially if the veto power is used by the United States in the Security Council. After all, John, what the Palestinians are after is extremely symbolic. It doesn't even end the occupation. It does not get rid of the settlements or of the occupying power at all. All it really does is a symbolic recognition of the Palestinians' right to statehood on a very small portion of their historic homeland, and for the U.S. to use the veto power in the Security Council, if a resolution in this regard goes there, I believe would create quite a lot of disappointment in the area.
All that said, the president's remarks today, does it carry much weight with the international community?
Well, it's an attempt to exert more pressure, I think, on more states, especially in the Security Council, not to accept such a resolution if it really gets there. And it is also meant to exert pressure on states in the General Assembly not to vote in favor of a resolution that would recognize Palestine as a state. So this is not the first time where the United States really uses pressure tactics to dissuade countries from supporting the Palestinian cause. But I believe this could widen the rift between the United States and the international community in this regard, because the overwhelming majority of states in the world and of peoples in the world do support Palestinian statehood.
Well, Dr. Ahmed, thanks very much for your thoughts, and we'll obviously continue to follow this. Dr. Hisham Ahmed is professor of politics at St. Mary's College in Moraga, specializing in Middle East topics. 12:21 nearly on KGO.